So I'm calling today's meeting to order at 11:06 a.m. August 21st. Before we get underway, I want to welcome everybody to this meeting today. We have a couple of local officials. We have Tony, Supervisor with North Alva, and Ebola, Supervisor with Upper, and also Ray Carden, also Board Chair, and John Norton, and also Executive Director. Welcome and welcome to the public. We're welcoming board members obviously here in person and remotely via video conference. And public viewers, thank you all for joining. Please note this board meeting videotape. The link to the video transcript will be posted on the website following this meeting. As we start today's items, I want to remind board members to please speak clearly and to identify yourself each time you speak to make a motion. And again, to report that. Renee?
Could you please call the roll?
Joe Martens.
Here.
Bill Beanie.
Here.
Cliff Donaldson.
Here.
Frank Cardinal. Steve Hunt.
Here.
Betty Little.
Here.
Art Lucy.
Here.
Diane Monroe.
We didn't hear you. You're muted, Diane.
Here. Chris Pushkarsh.
Here.
Joe Zalewski.
Here.
And Eleanor Tatum.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a quorum. The first item for the board action on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Could I have a motion approving the minutes of the board meeting held on June 23rd, 2023?
I'll make that motion.
So moved.
Moved by Betty and seconded by Ellie.
Oh.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I missed that meeting, so I'll abstain.
Okay, Cliff abstains. Motion carries. Next on the agenda, we have a matter regarding the appointment or employment of a particular person or corporation that requires a discussion in executive session of the board. So at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to go into an executive session to discuss matters leading to the appointment or employment of a particular person or corporation with respect to hiring the next president and CEO of ORDA.
So moved.
That resolution.
Moved by Ellie, seconded by Cliff. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? None. The motion carries. So this meeting is going to go into executive session, and the live recording will resume after the board votes to resume public session. Thank you. Okay. So this meeting is back in public session following a successful motion and vote to end executive session and resume public session. No action was taken during executive session. The purpose of the executive session was for the board members to discuss the appointment of a new president and CEO for the Olympic Authority to take the place of Mike Pratt, who will officially retire on September 29th, 2023, after more than 37 years of service to this organization. A remarkable run. Based on that discussion, I have a proposed resolution that I would like to put forth. And because, Renee, could you distribute the resolution? Because you have not seen the resolution, we've discussed it. I want to read the resolution from front to back. This is resolution 507. I'll wait for a second for people to have it so they can follow along.
Thank you.
Resolution approving the appointment of the president and CEO. At a meeting of the Board of Directors of the Olympic Regional Development Authority held on August 21st, 2023, the chair offered the following resolution. Whereas Michael J. Pratt, the president and CEO, who has been serving in this position since February 28th, 2017, has notified the board that he will retire from the Olympic Authority effective September 9th, 2023. And whereas pursuant to the Public Authorities Law, Section 2824, Section 1, Paragraph C, the Olympic Authority Bylaws, Article 1, Section 4, it is the responsibility of the board to appoint a new president and CEO and to establish policies regarding the payment of salary, compensation, and reimbursement to, and establish rules for the time and attendance of, among others, the president and CEO. And whereas the board has assembled a search committee of 6 board members for the purpose of receiving and reviewing applications for the position, conducting interviews, and making a recommendation to the full board. And whereas starting May 24th, 2023, the search committee received applications and reviewed resumes. And from June 14th, 2023 to July 1st, 2023, the search committee conducted interviews of prospective candidates. And whereas in accordance with Article 1, Section 4 of the Olympic Authority bylaws, based on the work of the search committee, the chair has made a recommendation to the board that it appoint Ashley Walden as the new Olympic Authority president and CEO. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the board of directors hereby appoints Ashley Walden as the new Olympic Authority president and CEO effective September 1st, 2023. And be it further resolved that the board of directors has established a starting salary for the new president and CEO based on the recommendation of the search committee, a review of the salary history of the outgoing president and CEO. And be it further resolved that the board of directors will establish rules for time and attendance of the president and CEO. And be it further resolved that the board of directors will review the president and CEO's performance on an annual basis and consider any future increases in salary/compensation in accordance with such annual performance reviews. And be it further resolved that any reimbursement to be provided to the new president and CEO shall be based upon the existing policies of the Olympic Authority, consistent with applicable laws and policies of the state for public employees. That was a mouthful. So could I have a motion to adopt Resolution 507, resolution approving the appointment of the president and CEO?
I'd like to move this. Diane Monroe.
Moved by
And
Diane.
I will second.
Seconded by Ellie. The purpose of the resolution is for the board to approve the appointment of Ashley Walden as the new president and CEO of the Olympic Authority, effective September 29th, 2023. Does anybody have any questions?
What was that?
No.
That's not the right.
No,
date.
it's not. That right?
September 1st.
September 1st. No. Sorry. Said September 1st when I read the resolution. Effective September 1st, 2023. Does anyone have any questions, or would anyone like any further discussion regarding the resolution? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstained? The motion carries unanimously. So that concludes the business of today's board meeting. Our next board meeting is scheduled for September 22nd, 2023. The September meeting will be held at the training center. And I would just like to, publicly thank the search committee for the hard work that it did. I would not want to have made this recommendation by myself. It was a incredibly difficult and thoughtful process. We had an incredibly talented list of candidates. And it was a very difficult decision, but one that I think is going to be very helpful for burnishing the legacy of the man who sits to my right. Mike Pratt is, we're going to get our chance to provide the appropriate accolades and reminiscence of his leadership here, but it's been extraordinary. And it will not be easy to fill his shoes, but I am super confident that the very, very talented staff that we have at ORDA is going to help Ashley make this one of the most, if not the most successful public authority in New York State, not just in the Olympic region, but statewide. So once again, I want to thank the committee for all its hard work. The timetable was not ideal, being in the middle of the summer. And by the way, everybody, I hope they had a nice summer because it looks like fall is here already. So that I'm going to conclude with, and I will entertain a motion or any other comments before I make the motion to conclude the meeting.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Okay, Cliff has made the motion to adjourn. Seconded by Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? The meeting is adjourned. It is 12:49 on Monday, the 22nd, 2023. Thank you very much.